Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bull City Coordinators. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen. Before we get into our first repeat guest on the program, I have to make two apologies and corrections for last time. When I was interviewing Todd DeLameliere, I mistakenly referred to Coach Franks' offense as Air Raid or something like that. The correct name was Airborne. I sort of apologize for that mistake, although the offense back then was fairly forgettable, so I will not be too hard on myself for that one. For the next one, however, completely inexcusable. I referred to our Twitter handle as @DukeFootballCoverage instead of @DukeFB coverage. That one is completely inexcusable and totally my fault. And now with my chance to correct myself like my podcasting hero, Mike Duncan, we will turn to the interview itself. We have coming back to the program our first former player who was willing to come on the show and talk to us. From 2012 to 2015, this man was part of 4 straight bowl game appearances, an ACC Coastal Championship, and closed it out with a Pinstripe Bowl win in 2015. Carlos Wray, thank you for coming back on the program, sir.
Absolutely. I enjoyed myself last time, so why not?
And this was actually your idea to get into the discussion about the bowls, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Why don't we go chronologically and start with 2012 and the Belk Bowl? And to set up that season for the listeners out there, you were a freshman. You were not there for the prior 2 years where Duke had back-to-back 3-9 seasons. There was a little bit of grumbling from the fan base, a little bit uncertainty kind of creeping in from the outside, but start of the season, Cutcliffe was pretty optimistic, and you had a good core, certainly on offense. You had Renfrey as a quarterback, Connor Vernon was a senior. I think Desmond Scott was also a senior who'd been converted from running back to wide receiver. And little-known Jamison Crowder, number 3, was really starting to come into his own. You guys had a tough, hard-nosed defense, certainly Ross Cockrell there on the team. And how you became bowl eligible, given what happened with the basketball game last night, I feel like we need to spend a little bit of time on this one. You all are 5-1, lose to Virginia Tech, you're 5-2. Then you have Carolina at home. How did that game turn out for you?
That was probably the craziest game I've ever been a part of. My freshman year at Carolina. In the last couple seconds of the game, win the game at a packed stadium. Wallace Way's going crazy. It was a good Carolina team. They had Giovanni Bernard, they had Bray Renner at quarterback, along with Marquise Williams. They had Eric Ebron, if I'm not mistaken. It was a good Carolina team. So that was huge my freshman year. So.
You guys celebrated that like it was a bowl win. I felt like it was the first, you became bowl eligible for the first time since 1994. First season with at least 6 wins since 1994. First time beating Carolina, I believe, since 2003. And I'll stand to be corrected and fact check later, but I think it was the first home win against the Tar Heels since 1988. That certainly was a big win and a validation of everything that Coach Cutcliffe and you guys, the players that you mentioned that helped bring you to Durham, had been trying to accomplish. Now, after that, you guys hit a series of buzzsaws. Florida State, Clemson, both in the top 10, I believe, when you played them. Georgia Tech, 3 straight losses. You lost a 4th one against Miami, but that game, and you can correct me if my interpretation of this is wrong, I felt like that was one where you all started to settle in as a team, really get in a good rhythm. You were down 28-10 at the half, but Sean Renfrey and the offense just lit it up in the second half. Final score was, I believe, 52-47. You only lost by a touchdown. How did you guys feel at the end of the season, even though you had 4 straight losses, but we're going to a bowl game?
We knew that we were on the brink or something. I was really, really young at the time, so I got a chance to witness it just from a young perspective. I played in a couple of those games, but not all of them my freshman year. I think it was Virginia that season. When we played Virginia that season, we were up 14-0 at halftime, and we're happy. Team celebrated, we were winning. To me, I'm coming from a high school program where I'm used to winning, so I'm up 14-0 at half. I know we're gonna, it's nothing. But Coach Cut shuts the doors, kicks all the media out, and personnel. It's just us and the coaches and the training staff. And Coach Cut is in a frenzy, and not in a good way. He is. He threw his clipboard and he's livid. And I'm thinking to myself, we're winning. Why is he pissed? And the message was, we should be winning by way more than we are. And he was pissed that we weren't. And we came out in that second half and we tore Virginia in half. That right there let us know that we could compete with anybody, because that was a good Virginia team. A lot of those guys ended up going on to the NFL. And they also had Phillip Sims, who had just transferred from Alabama at quarterback. So we knew they were kind of stacked, but we didn't care about any of that. But we came out and it got ugly. In Virginia, I think they only scored 14 points that game. But that game was the statement game for us, because it was an ACC game, it was a home game. We went out there and we played our football. And fast forward to the Virginia Tech Florida States. Those are games I feel like we came out and we could have won. If you look at the Virginia Tech game, you look at the first half versus the second half, the first half was the remnants of the 2013 team. The second half was the remnants of the 2011 team. So you saw the good and the bad. You go all the way up to the Miami game where they have Duke Johnson and Philip Dorsett. They're stacked. They have it all. We came out and competed. Jamison Crowder took a 54-yard reception to the house against Miami. But we used to have guys at Duke who couldn't even outrun a guy from Georgia Tech, let alone a guy from Miami who grew up in Miami. Everybody knows that's where the speed's at, Florida, But you go all the way up to Miami. We looked at that game coming out of that season like we're on the brink. We already know we're on the brink. And fast forward to the Belk Bowl, I don't know how many people saw Cut's message, but hell yeah, it's Duke football.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it was a hell of a ride all the way to the Belk Bowl. We were happy in a sense to be there, but we came there to win. We weren't just in awe in the moment, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and I want to set the scene for the Belk Bowl. This would have been, again, 94 as a theme, but it would be the first winning season since 94, first bowl win since 1961 in the Cotton Bowl. Cincinnati's coach, Butch Jones, had just taken the Tennessee job, and they were extraordinarily shorthanded on the sidelines. Now, from where me, my dad, my brother, my Uncle Tom, and some of his family were up in the very, very top of Bank America Stadium, we couldn't see all that, okay? And one thing we didn't notice going into that game, or maybe didn't appreciate at the time, was that you guys had to guard Travis Kelce, who some people may have heard of. He's an okay tight end. He's had his moments, right? So, what's the game plan? What's the strategy? How are you going to keep a guy like Kelce locked down?
Well, our strategy going into that game, I specifically remember Coach Knowles speaking to how tough of a team Cincinnati was. We didn't speak to individuals very often, but he spoke to how tough Cincinnati was as a team. And what he meant by that was a lot of hard-nosed guys, a lot of guys who had the offer to go to Ohio State or just missed Ohio State and Michigan and ended up in Cincinnati. Like they're guys that can compete and they can play. And we knew that. So we knew we were going to have to bring our all, and that's what we did. We didn't really speak to the individual, but I'll say going into that game, a lot of those players, looking at a lot of those players now, or looking back at their game now, a lot of those players are just as tough as a lot of the guys we had. If you look at the goal line stops they had, look at our 16-0 lead, to start it out. So, I mean, we both are doubted programs in that game. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys, like I said, missed the Ohio State offer by maybe a tackle or a sack. A lot of us chose to come to Duke, negating some people had the Florida States, some people had the Carolinas, some people had the Bamas, Ohio States. We negated that and we came to Duke. So both programs being doubted, I feel like it set the stage for the game itself. With Travis Kelce, we realized who he was pretty early in the game.
You guys kept him in check till about, I think, midway through the second or the third quarter, and then he started to turn into Travis Kelce.
Well, I'll tell you, I've never heard of him, and that's no disrespect to him because he's a superstar. You know what I mean? He's a model tight end in the league, and he's an absolute freak of nature, and he's one hell of a rock runner. But then, we're thinking a hard-nosed team is a hard-nosed team. We've seen those. We've seen Pittsburgh. Just the background of some of those guys, the Wisconsin guys coming to Pittsburgh to play football, the big offensive linemen, tough, hard-nosed offensive linemen, but they can move, the athletic guys. Guys like that. But with Kelce, when he caught his first pass, I believe it was Jordan Bias that went to lay a hit on him.
Yeah.
They met in the middle, and Kelce didn't budge. And I said, okay. And then Jordan, he struggled to get up and made his way to his feet and stayed on the field and went right back to Kelce. Boom, hit him again. And so we got it close to Kelce pretty early. And then, as the game went along, our offense is out there, and, the goal line, the 2 goal line fumbles really probably cost us, but one of which Jalay Duncan was knocked out at the goal line, so we can't really speak to that because there's no penalty called there for him. But the other one was Snead, I believe. He went off the back of one of our offensive linemen, and the ball popped out on him. So,
well, let me break down a couple of points and give a little context to the listeners. When Jordan, I watched that. Like I told you before we got started, I rewatched each bowl game twice. And Jordan, did he come back after that second hit? I mean, he looked like he took I don't know a good way to describe it that wouldn't trivialize the context of the hits that he took. But was he out for the rest of the game?
Yeah, after that second hit, that pretty much put him out for the game. And Jordan was our bruiser at the time. He was our guy he was our hard helmet. He'd lay a guy out, no problem, jump up, run off. So when that happened, it kind of shocked everybody. It didn't put a sense of fear in us or nothing like that, but it kind of shocked everybody. Like, wow, these guys are tough, just like us.
So okay, so to get you to describe kind of what happened, you guys came out firing on all cylinders. You go up 16-0, including a blocked punt that got returned for a touchdown. Then right, and then Duncan fumbles the ball at the 1 in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm. And he's knocked out. He got hit. He got helmet to helmet at the goal line. And if you look at the tape, I don't know if they showed cut was livid because there was no call. There was no flag thrown. The ball came out. Cincinnati recovered, and then fast forward from there.
Yeah, they ended up putting over the course of into the third quarter 27 straight points. Although at the end of the half, I think Ross Martin hit a 50-something yard field goal that got waved off because of an illegal substitution that Cincy did deliberately because it didn't have any more timeouts. And you want to talk about a livid Coach Cutcliffe.
So he hit a 56-yard field goal, which was a record for a freshman in the ACC. He got 56 yards. They send a guy, the illegal substitution is what it was, right? In the book, there's supposed to be a re-kick because the foul was committed by the offense. No, that's not supposed to be a re-kick. There's supposed to be a decline of foul that the field goal is good because there isn't a penalty committed by the offense. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just like A-Rod catching the guy trying to run off the field and snapping the ball real quick. Well, that's going to go against the defense.
Right.
If they get a touchdown, guess what? It's a touchdown. They decline it. They didn't give Cut the option. They waved it off, sent it to the locker room, TV, boom.
Right. And he missed the second attempt and the half end 17-16. And, they're really putting it to you guys. But then you guys turn a corner. Tell us what got you guys back in the game and got moving again.
We felt like we got flat right there in the third quarter of that game. Like I said, at the time I'm young, so I'm kind of just watching. I had maybe 3 or 4 snaps in that game. They weren't very effective snaps, I'll be honest. But just from looking at the atmosphere and looking at everybody, I think it started to set in on us. The weather, how cold it was out there.
I remember that. I remember how cold it was.
I think that's something, if you go back and look at that season, we hadn't had cold like that maybe since that Carolina game. The Georgia Tech game ended up being a 70-degree game. The Virginia Tech game started off as a 63-degree game, and it got a little cold, but by that time we were out of there. That game, so I believe that game was an afternoon game. It was like a 1 o'clock game. So we were in and out of there. By the time it got cold, we hadn't been in the cold. But the Miami game was 53 degrees. The Wake Forest game, it was raining. It was like 63 degrees. And I remember all of this. But that game was probably the coldest game we've been in all season. Even in preparation, it wasn't that cold. It got brutal in the third quarter because the wind started to pick up. Because as you know, the Panther Stadium is just like a big wind tunnel. So I think that started to set in, but then I think the mindset became, we're better than this. By the time we got to the fourth quarter, we were tired of being thrown around. We were tired of pretty much being bullied. So I think that's what pretty much made us turn that corner.
Well, you guys were down 27-16. You go on an 11-play, 86-yard drive to more or less close out the third quarter. And Connor Vernon gets a 10-yard touchdown reception from Renfrey. He gets up, starts jawing to the defensive back who'd been guarding him, and then there's a 2-point conversion to Isaac Blakeney that's good, that gets you all within a field goal. Next, big game closer, Reeves shows up, and I want to ask you about this a little bit. He gets a touchdown catch from the touchdown gobbler himself, Brandon Cannett. Ross Martin gets the conversion. It was a 9-play, 68-yard drive. You guys are up by 4. And let me ask you one thing about those two players, all right? Reeves showed up at a key moment, but Cannett had a real good argument that if Duke won that game, he could have been the MVP because that was the second touchdown he was responsible for in that game, and he had 4 or 5 catches during the course of that game, all at key moments. What was the mood when you guys get the lead back, and how was Reeves doing on the sidelines, and what was Cannett doing just to be so locked in?
Well, Cannett is a sniper. We all know that Cannett was a guy that could take over a ball game, just not even passing the ball. Brandon Cannett was exactly what Taysom Hill is to the Saints. He could play tight end. He could play receiver. He could play quarterback. He could run the ball as like a running back or a fullback. However, I won't speak to the individual accolade. If he felt that way, then, hey, thumbs up. I see how you can feel that way, but I won't speak to that. But as far as the amount of emotion and the amount of jubilation on the sideline I grew up for, it lasted to a minimum, because right after that, we're right back locked in, because we know, all right, they're about to get the ball back. David Reeves is David Reeves through and through. He's as cool as a fan. I mean, he's not walking around and shouting, but he's not sitting with his head down either. He's, every guys are coming by, patting him on the shoulder, and celebrating with Connect, but both of those guys go back, sit down, and put their focus back on the field. And that's what I appreciated about both of those guys, me being young. And Reeves was a class ahead of me, so at the time, he was really young as well. So the level of maturity that I was able to see after those guys making big plays like that, it really spoke to me as a freshman.
Now, you guys trade some points. It's tied at 34 into the fourth quarter. And Crowder had a really good punt return. I think you guys start off at the 43, your own 43, with a little over 5 minutes to go. And Josh Snead is really moving the ball well, which is a theme for him in bowl games. He really,
He's a rhythm.
yeah.
He's a rhythm in himself.
And then there was a screen pass, I think, to Connor Vernon that looked like a missed targeting call. And I'm up in the stands freezing, but I'm thinking to myself, this is a program-defining drive where the Blue Devils go from, oh, Duke football to hell yes, Duke football, right? And it feels like everything's clicking. You guys are going to take it in and score, or at least get a field goal. What happens?
The wind kind of just came from under the sails, huh? We got down there on the one, I believe. Snead, like I said, he's a rhythm. When he gets going, you feed him, because he's going to take you somewhere. And that's, like you said, he had a thing with that in bowl games. He had a thing with that in big games. If you look at the 2013 Miami game, which I'm sure we'll get to. But Snead had a thing about rhythm. Once he started clicking, and once he started seeing the moves and the holes that he could, the holes he could hit, the moves he could make, you couldn't tell him anything. So that's what we trusted. And we got down there, got to the one, and going in, the ball, like I said, he ran in the back of 1 hour line, and the ball popped out on him. And Cincinnati recovered it on like the 3 or 4 yard line, if I'm not mistaken.
And I didn't see this initially because I was at the game, so you don't see all the camera angles that they show to the TV audience. He looked just mortified and broken on the sideline, and I felt terrible for him watching it, 9 years after the fact. How was he doing on the sideline? It looked like Cofield came over to try to cheer him up some. What was his reaction on the sideline?
Any player that has that happen to him is going to feel a lot of emotions at that time. You want to get down on yourself, but you got teammates trying to uplift you, and you're also trying to remain focused in the game because the game isn't over. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of it's a lot going on, and it's a lot on the player when things like that happen. I think Snead spoke to it well. He didn't put his head down as far as he didn't let his emotions take him out of the game. And I think guys like Jacoby Cofield, who we call TC, or Big Cat, he came over and he definitely came over and put his arm around him, as you should, as a teammate. Not that a lot of other guys did that too, off camera, on camera, whether it was seen or not, even after the game. Nobody personally attacked him or came at him or nothing like that. We just kind of took our punch and rolled with it.
So speaking of taking punches and rolling with it, what happened on that 83-yard touchdown catch from Kelsey? It looked like busted coverage where he was just wide open and somebody forgot to roll over, or maybe it was just a bad call. What happened that he got so wide open?
To be honest, I'll be honest with you. Taking through my lens, through my eyes, what happened on that play. I think what was supposed to be a pop pass turned into an 83-yard touchdown. And I say that because you see quick play fake, and I think AJ Klein, I don't remember his name, the quarterback for Cincinnati at the time. I think it was Colin Klein.
I think it was Brendan Kay.
Kane, that's who it was.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Because we were expecting to play Munchie Lego, who was the running, he was a scrambler, but he had a hell of an arm as well. He had got hurt earlier in the season. But quick play fake, turn the hips, boom, he hits Kelsey. Now, pause the film. If you look at the gap Kelsey has, there's no linebacker, there's no safety. So if we were in man, somebody didn't realize it. If we were in zone, somebody wasn't in their zone, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right.
And again, quick pop pass, boom, he hits Kelsey. Now, from my point of view on the sideline, all I see is the ball in the air, and I see a bolt of lightning streaking down the field. And all I can think is, who the hell is that? Because he left everybody in the dust. I mean, I'm on the losing sideline in this, and I'm just looking like, who the hell is that? Fast forward, it's Travis Kelsey. So, like I said, we got our fair dose of Travis Kelsey. From being on, I've seen nothing but him on ESPN, scoring touchdowns for Kansas City, dancing, having fun, enjoying it, and he deserved it. We worked hard for it, and we saw it in person.
So they go up 41-34. You guys get the ball back. You're trying to make something happen, and then Sean Renfrey gets hit. His arm gets messed up. They return the ball for a touchdown, and that's pretty much the end of it. It's 48-34 at that point. That's how the game ends. How did you guys react as a team, as a coaching staff, as individuals, to the extent you can speak about it, to that way of ending a game with two just heartbreaking plays?
Well, obviously, after the season we had, nobody likes to like for it to end that way. It's one of those things too, though. You could this is gonna sound crazy, and I am just I'm the crazy guy to say it, but you felt a sense of excitement as well for the spring. Especially, you felt for the seniors, especially because, last game, this is probably the best season that they've had since they've been a part of the program. But for the guys that were returning, there was a sense of excitement because a lot of us, myself, Max McCaffrey, Shaquille Powell, Jaleel Duncan, we got a taste of it. Devon Edwards, we got a taste of it. So we know, okay, so this is what it looks like, and this is just 6 wins. And then we get to come back with these guys, with Boone, with Connect, with Kelby Brown, with Kenny Anoniki, Braxton Deaver, Reeves. We look at the team that's coming back. There was a sense of excitement. I mean, you had coaches putting their arms around us and telling us, be ready for the spring. We didn't know what that meant. As freshmen, a lot of us were just excited to go home. But leaving Panther Stadium, there was a sense of excitement.
And it was Yeah, it was a real sad way to end, especially for the seniors who had gone through everything that they had gone through, and it really hurt Renfree's draft stock, although he did get drafted late by the Falcons, but it just seemed like his arm probably wasn't the same after that. But going into 2013 now, and we go to, again, I'm going to call it the Peach Bowl till the day I die, but you guys had just a magical season. You start out 2-2, a close loss to Pitt, and then just everything that needs to go right goes right. You rattle off, 8 straight wins, some of those geared and by amazing plays from number 27, Edwards. A great game against Virginia Tech, which we talked about previously. The NC State game with Edwards returning kicks and picking off passes, and then his returns against North Carolina, where you beat them at Carolina, 2 wins in a row. You go to the ACC championship because you win the Coastal. You lose to Florida State, but Florida State was really, really good that year, and I don't think that affected you guys as far as putting you into a funk the way that you came out against A&M. You guys were ranked 24. They were ranked 21. First 10-win season in school history. First Coastal title in school history. What is the mood as you go into the game in Atlanta against Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M?
Our mentality that season didn't let us go into a game that we thought we were going to lose. When we watched ESPN as a team in the locker room before practice, after practice, obviously looking to see if old Duke is on there. We want to see if they're going to say something about us because we were kind of buzzing, And that Virginia Tech game, they brought it up, and they were like, well, Virginia Tech's number 13 in the country, and they're touted, they're loaded with Thomas and Coleman in the backfield, and it was just crazy. And we got the Blacksburg. We didn't think like, here we go, we're going to be in a battle or anything like that. We knew we were going to win against NC State. We knew we were going to win. Like there wasn't a simmer in the locker room like, oh, this is a tough team, or oh, this is a team that is ranked in the country. We got to bring her all. We just went out there and played football. Same thing against Miami. We went out there and played football. I mean, that's just what it was. We didn't look at the team like that's a tough team. That was the mentality of the whole season. That's why after the loss in the ACC championship to Florida State, there wasn't a fall off in mentality. We had that mentality the whole season.
And you guys had Jeremy Cash in 2013, and I remember I was at the Wake Forest game. I remember watching him getting fired up, wanting the crowd to cheer and get behind you guys. He had transferred over from Ohio State in 2012. If he had been able to play and not had to sit out in 2012, do you think the Belk Bowl ends differently with him there?
Again, like I told you, I can't speak to the individual, but I'll say this: he was an adamant piece to our defense. So I can't say whether he would have been. I can't say whether he would have been on the field involved on that play. Coach Knowles may not even have had him in that specific package. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But if he was an adamant part of our defense when he was able to play, and I think that maybe or maybe not, who knows? I guess we just have to roll with the fact that who knows.
Yeah, this is one of those fan questions that we talk about as fans that really have no bearing on anything, but sometimes we bring them up. But tell me a little bit where the confidence came from that you knew that you could win any game that you played that year and you were not intimidated by the lights or the history of the other programs.
When we went into Memphis that year, we went into a hot box. I mean, it was 110 degrees. They had AstroTurf that was just put down, brand new. They had their tiger out there. Their fans are calling us everything in the book. We're jawing back and forth with their fans. The fans are throwing stuff, spitting. It's wild. Their team is they have Paxton Lynch. He's a freshman. He's a freshman. He just came from Florida to Memphis. And that's what we prayed on him. We prayed on him like if hyenas saw a lion down in the desert, they're going to get him. We prayed on him. Like hyenas on the lion is now. We knew he wasn't ready. And we prayed on that. They had a fabulous team. Their team was a tough team. I think they ended up winning 7 or 8 games that season, if I'm not mistaken. But that mentality came out of that game because we turned, instead of jawing back and forth and continuing to go back and forth with their fans, we turned the energy towards their team. We turned the heat up a little bit. Coach Cut told us in the locker room, but we are the Blue Devils. It's 110 degrees outside. This is our type of weather, if that makes sense. So
when Boone got hurt, I think in that game, Kennett steps in, plays well, and kind of allowed you guys to, I don't want to say tread water, but kept you guys in games and playing well. And then when Boone comes back, it all clicks. You get.
Well, it's like I told you. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
I listened to our last interview, and I spoke to it in our last interview. There was no fall off. We knew that when Boone went down, Kennett was just as good. It's just like Drew Brees going down, and we're going to go with Taysom Hill. We know he's been here. He's played some quarterback for us. He's just, I'm not going to say Taysom Hill is just as good as Drew Brees, but in the sense, the aspect of the analogy, Kennett and Boone were on the same level. We had 2 starting quarterbacks. So when Boone went down, we knew that there was a fall off. Our offense knew, well, Kennett knows the playbook just as good as Boone does, if not better. He can spin the ball just as good as Boone, if not better. He can run the ball. Like, we had that aspect there. So there wasn't a shook factor. There wasn't a fall off. There wasn't well, dang, we felt for Boone, but Boone he's a lion in the jungle. I mean, he's coming out of that every time. You know what I'm saying? He worked his tail off to get back on the field. But while he was out, he cheered Kennett on. That's the mentality we carry. That's the sense of family that we have, if that makes sense.
Oh, exactly. And coming into Atlanta, you've got to contain Johnny Manziel, Evans, a real good offensive line. After we spoke last time, I went back and paid attention to the A&M offensive line. Jaleh Duncan's out of that game. He'd been suspended. It didn't look like being a man down at a key spot affected you at all, to continue with what you were saying about Kennett. It sure looked like next man up, let's go make a play. And the start of the game is great. A&M looks out of sync. They're trying to make a big play on every down instead of just making a play. Snead, I think, blocked the punt, which may have been the only punt of the game. And you guys are scoring touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Although at the end of the half, 38-17, it did feel a little bit closer than that when I watched it again, maybe because I knew the outcome. But Manziel threw for almost 200 yards in that first half, and he had 2 touchdowns. What's the mindset of the team at halftime?
I specifically remember Sidney Sarriento saying, "Don't get caught." He was walking around the locker room, and he had this look in his eyes. And it wasn't a look of fear, but it was this look in his eyes like he was just ready to hurt something. And he just kept saying, "Do not get comfortable. Don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable." He was over there with the quarterback. "Don't get comfortable." He's yelling over Coach Montgomery to the offense. He's yelling, and he's repeating it and repeating it. And he repeated it so much that Coach Cut walked up behind him and put his hand on his shoulder right before Coach Cut started talking. But Coach Montgomery didn't get to finish. I specifically remember Sidney Sarmiento repeating that, "Do not get comfortable." And then it was his last game. And you could just see the emotions in his eyes. You could just tell by his body language he was ready. He was ready.
Now, there were a couple of big plays in the first half before we get to the second half, and you talked about the sense of family you had. There were some that I wanted to mention that I think really spoke to that, particularly when Snead ran the ball in, I think, for a 25-yard touchdown, and who drilled the A&M secondary and cleared open a hole to get Snead into the end zone, but Jamison Crowder. I mean, he just laid a guy out.
And you go back and look at the film, Jamison's waving Snead over.
Right.
He's waving him. He's telling him, come on. Because Jamison knew. He knew every dose of it.
No, I mean, Boone had a deep throw for 59 yards to Crowder at one point and almost scored a touchdown right at the end of the second half. Blakeney caught the ball, I think, at the 2. What happened at the end? It looked like 4 or 5 extra seconds ran off the clock before the timeout was given. Was someone trying to call it and the refs just didn't catch it, or what occurred there?
So Cut was on the field calling the timeout. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Knowles was down the sideline calling timeout. And the referees was like, nailed blind. They didn't see nothing. So.
Now, if you had gotten maybe 4 or 5 extra seconds, I know that was your last time out, would you guys have tried to go with the Connect package or something to try to get a touchdown there? Because as we see in the second half, you needed all the points you could get.
Right. I think we stick to the game plan. I think we go ahead with the Ross Martin field goal. I think we go ahead and roll on.
All right. So in the second half, the offense isn't quite running at the high octane it was in the first half, but I think that just kind of happens sometimes. I'm not knocking anybody. It's just you put up 38 points in the first half. Eventually, odds are that's going to taper off a little bit. Particularly, there was a short 4th and 1 that there wasn't a successful conversion on. And maybe there was an attempt to throw to Connect on a wheel route or something in the flat, and then on the next drive, that leads to a touchdown. What happened on that play on that 4th and 1?
I'm sorry. I don't remember the play as vividly as you explained it.
Well, I watched it recently, so I'll give you a pass on that one. But there was an attempt to go for it on 4th and 1. It's 38-17. It doesn't work out, and then you give up a touchdown on the next drive. How are you guys feeling at that point where they're starting to score some more touchdowns?
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're talking about. On that play, that 4th down play, we ran that play twice because when we came back to it, we ran it with Reeves. And that was his big play. The next play, a young Breon Borders was deep. I do remember that. He was very deep. Just on pretty much a go route. Wasn't even a stop and go. It was just a go route. Back turn. Johnny put it on the spot. As cliche as that sounds. And they scored a touchdown. Our mentality is we still battle. That's exactly what Sidney Summerville said at halftime. Don't get comfortable. And we were battling. That's exactly what it was. Texas A&M's defense kind of stepped it up a little bit, as you spoke to. They kind of, I'm not going to say they figured us out, but they kind of made their adjustments at halftime, and they made them spot on. There was no mentality shift for us. We were battling, and that's what we came into the game knowing we were going to battle. That's every game for us, we battled. We were already doubted. We knew that. We doubted in every game we played that season until we won the game. That was our homecoming tour. So we definitely crashed homecoming that season, and we planned on doing the same thing for Texas A&M. Even though we were in Atlanta, we were the away team. It was another homecoming game for us. We were ready to crash it and get up out of there.
So their A&M's ability to move the ball and score does not affect your mentality as a team at all.
No, because when you look at the quarterbacks that we played that season, obviously none of them being Johnny Manziel-esque, but if you look at the ACC breakdown, we usually play enough scramblers to know we got to contain. We have to contain.
Who was your?
We have to push, and on the outside we have to contain. And Johnny Manziel he was the ultimate test. He was the ultimate scrambler that season. And with that dose of it, I mean, if you go back and look at the play, when he broke out the spin move that every quarterback is using now, where he reverses out, and rolls out to the opposite side. He got Jamal Bruce on that play. Jamal Bruce ended up breaking his foot on that play. And Manziel ended up putting the ball for a touchdown or a first down, if I'm not mistaken. Blew the first down. But, yeah, we played our fair share of scramblers that season. We knew what it was going to be like to face a running quarterback. Now, again, as I said, he was the ultimate scrambler that season. He was the Lamar Jackson of that season. And we got a dose of him.
Did you have someone spying on him? It looked like Brown got in there and got a couple of hits on him.
On one play, the play where Johnny Manziel jumps up and he's on top of Kelby and he comes back down, me and Kelby are in the second gap, and I'm taking on a double team. Manziel runs in that gap. Him and Kelby kind of meet in the middle, and Kelby falls on me, and Manziel bounces back. And that's how he ended up on his feet in that play. But a lot of plays were contained. A lot of plays were contained by contained, but with a linebacker shooting one of the gaps, which would be Kelby Brown. So we did a couple of different things in that game. I won't give up Jim Knowles' scheme because he's an Oklahoma State coach, and I don't want nobody to listen to this. He's an Oklahoma State coach, and they have good defense. So I won't give up his scheme, but he planned it well.
Well, going through how the scoring unfolds, they get it within 7, 38-31. You guys get a field goal to extend the lead to 10 on a drive with some nice passes to Deaver, but also a play I want to ask you about, see if you remember this one. Boone throws the ball to the left side of the field, and it looks like it goes over Isaac Blakeney's head by about 10 feet, and then Janelle Barnes just slides in and catches it. All right. Was Boone throwing to Blakeney or Barnes? Do you know?
I'll be honest with you. The way it looked to me, I thought he was throwing it away. But Blakeney being 6'5", he's a big target. So I could see that he was throwing to Isaac, and I think Janelle was maybe right place, right time. But to what it looked like to me on the sideline, it looked like he was throwing it away because we didn't have a check down. The running back was out route, so and he was covered pretty well. So it looked like he was throwing it away, but some love, some scheme,
Well, one thing that as I've done a lot of these interviews, there's such a thin line between a winning game and a losing game for a team, and you need a lot to go your way to win a game, and that could have been one of those plays. But going into the fourth, you're up 10, Manziel scores a touchdown, and it looked like Cash just rode him straight into the barrier and was mad about the fact that he scored a touchdown. Do you remember that play, and what was the mindset of the defense when it's now gone from a 10-point lead to a 3-point lead?
We're trying to kill him. No, I'm kidding. But Cash is a competitor. He's the ultimate competitor. And a lot of us, we were trying to stay in the game, if that makes sense. Again, you said it goes from a 10-point lead to a 3-point lead. That's frustrating for a defense that's been competing all game. So for us, again, we're playing a team that's on the brink of being one of the best teams in the country. The next season, they're going to beat Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, or the season before that, they beat Alabama. So they're on the brink of being one of the best teams in the country. In our mind, we are too. So we're competing at a level that some of us have never competed before. or thought that we could compete at. We're competing with an SEC team. So for us, just like Cash, the mentality was compete. Get everything you can out of him. He rode Manziel all the way to the barrier, jumped up, and was livid at the fact that he scored because he's a competitor. Imagine the rest of the sideline. Remember how you felt when he scored. You probably were a little pissed off too, huh?
No comment. I told you last time how I felt about this game. I was nervous the whole time, but I mean, if I'd been a little bit more in the moment, I think I probably would have been that way. I remember being upset about all the TV time that was devoted to Manziel and A&M. And watching it again, I was upset that you guys didn't get talked about more because you guys had a great season. But the next drive, we're going to go back to Reeves again, but you guys had two real good tight ends. Deaver has some big third down conversions. And then tell us how we get the ball in the end zone there. Walk us through that just amazing tightrope, which just undersells what Reeves did to get in the end zone.
So I was standing maybe 93 plays away from David Reeves when he got called up, and that was after the fact.
Okay, we had a little technical hiccup there, but we've got you back. Tell us what Reeves did to get the ball into the end zone there.
Yeah, so I'm standing about 3 players away from David Reeves, and he gets called up. This is after Braxton Deaver has been out there putting up numbers. I guess it was time, got to give him a little break, maybe 2 or 3 plays. And nobody saw this coming, but Reeves gets out there. And boom, I think the call was for Boone to either hit Crowder deep or check down to one of the backs. And Crowder got double running through the seam. Safety over the top, linebacker on his knees. Boone sees Reeves come open. Boom, he hits him. And somehow, I guess, I don't know if he realized he was on the sideline. I don't know if instincts kicks in. But he starts tightroping. After he shifts, he gets spun out. And he starts tightroping the sideline. And, of course, the referees, and we're thinking, like, ain't no way he stepped out. He can't, his foot came down. They show the replay. He's running down the sideline. We're looking at this thing. We're like, man, he may have just made the greatest play in ACC history.
Because I don't know how I think it was his right foot. I can't remember which one. I don't know how that didn't fall down and how he was able to lean his body forward because he's a tall guy.
6'5", 255 pounds, straight muscle. He's probably, at the time, he's probably about, I don't know, he probably had less body fat now than he had then, but then he probably had about 4, maybe 3% body fat. Controlling all of that on a tightrope down the sideline, diving to the pot line, jumping up. Referee looks at him, gives him a signal. Man, come on. We're going crazy. I mean, I'm almost in the end zone because that's how many players and signals ran by me, pushing me forward to go celebrate with him. And, we obviously do a flag, but whatever. But that was the craziest thing we had ever seen. That's the craziest thing we've seen all season. So it was jubilation for us.
So they score another touchdown. It's 48-45 after that big play from Reeves, which is a theme in these bowl games, okay? And you guys get the ball back with 5:44 to go, and Boone throws to Barnes. I watched it 3 or 4 times on the replay. What happened with that interception that gets returned for a touchdown there? I couldn't quite make sense of what the read was supposed to be and what Boone saw when he threw the ball to Barnes. Tell us about that.
It's kind of seeing too much. You can see too much as a quarterback. And I think that Boone was used to the 4-man rush that he had been sitting the whole game. I can see this play. That's a live thing right quick, but I can see this play in my head. Boom, takes his 3-step drop, read, right, left, middle, right. When he read back right, I think he expected that defensive end to be there for him to step up, and he got hit. And instead of that defensive end being there, the defensive end dropped off as to sink back underneath the tackle or to fall out into coverage. And Boom threw the ball, and it was intercepted. He returned for a touchdown.
So basically, they dropped a man in coverage, changed up what he had expected to see all game, and that's how that happened.
Just a late drop. That's all it was. It was a late sinking. That's all it was. He rushed up the field, gave the effect of pass rushing, and then boom, dropped out. And Boom didn't see him. Boom was getting hit as he went down. He let the ball go. Boom probably saw the ball. If Boom threw the ball, he either knew John could beat that man or John was beating that man, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was a tough one.
It didn't shake you guys, though, because the offense comes back, is driving the ball down the field. Max McCaffrey got a catch stolen from him that I still don't understand how that wasn't a catch. They missed a bad pass interference on McCaffrey. What was the reaction when that catch got taken away?
It seemed like the referees and everybody else was kind of ready to get out of there, you know.
So
we're still competing, and it just seemed like everybody else was kind of just ready to get out of there. The referees weren't really into it anymore. It's just like, well, you know, it was a letdown kind of for us because we're still out there trying to win.
Now, you keep chugging away. Boone throws deep to Crowder. He can't quite come down with a touchdown on first down, but you guys are it's 2nd and 10. You're about 2 yards away from Ross's field goal range. I think you're at A&M's 38. 2nd down. What happens next?
The end all be all. I'll just say it like that. They pretty much put us away. I mean, it was a tough game to relive watching it. It was a tough game to really think about, but it's pretty much the end of the ball game.
And so that was a second pick then that he threw, turned the ball over.
Yeah.
There, obviously, you want him to take the sack.
Yeah.
I think you guys were out of timeouts, but you still had time to move the ball. Did you guys have any other plays ready if you either get an incompletion or he just takes a sack?
If he takes the sack, we'll go on the NASCAR, which is the hurry up package, of course. But again, the second pick that going through was still the deal. You want to take a sack there. If you look at the film, he's looking into the area which he found Reeves open earlier. And Texas A&M does that same thing where they drop a man out. So, because they rushed 5 and then dropped the guy late. They rushed the linebacker and dropped the end and boom. And it's the same thing that happened earlier, but they just did it with a linebacker. They rushed them and then dropped them out late. Boom. Pick. So it was same deal.
And so the NASCAR.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me correct myself. That linebacker was a nickel safety that picked him off the first time. That was Everett. So I'll correct myself there, but it's the same concept. But
so then the NASCAR hurry up package, what are you looking for on that type of a play? Are you going to do a draw, a screen? What's the plan?
I mean, there's a couple of different things that they can do now. Again, I don't know who listens to this, and I also don't know. Well, I'll say this. There are still tendencies and habits that are still being used today that were used then. So I won't specifically speak to the plays that are being used because I don't want to be giving up information that could get me 1 sued or 2 give a phone call from Coach Gut. So
okay, well, if I were licensed in North Carolina as an attorney, I could help you out with that. But I'll get you to a guy. So two questions. One, if you guys win that game, how does that alter the perception of Duke football when you put up 661 yards in that game against an SEC team? And what was the mood after that game was over?
We were hurt after that one. I won't even sugarcoat it. We were hurt after that game. That game was a tough one. It was a tough look to take because we worked so hard that season. We seen 2 Heisman Trophy winners back to back. So that one was really tough for us. If we'd won that game, we're talking top 15 team going into next season. Easy. Like you said, we were 24 out of 21. If you look at where they ended up the next season, they started their season number 11, I think, the next season. So we were easily been a top 15 team.
And that makes a difference on the recruiting trail, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, now that we got that cheerful memory out of the way, let's talk about 2014. And I'm going to have to rely on you to give me what happens in this bowl game because I couldn't find a full version of it on YouTube. It was a condensed version. I think you guys started out 8-1 that year, and you'd had a loss against Miami. It was 10-22, so not terrible. Then you're playing. I think you were ranked 4 weeks out of the season. You play Virginia Tech. I think Ross Martin had his only really bad kicking game of his career, where he missed 2 field goals. But you play Virginia Tech. The special teams for them are just a different animal, right? And you got as high as 19. You lost 2 straight games, but then bounced back against Wake Forest. Took your frustration out on them as you beat them 41-21. You were close to getting back to the Coastal. You finished the season 9-3, trying to get 10 straight wins for 2 seasons. 2 seasons with 10 straight wins. I'm sorry that I garbled that one so badly. And you come in to the Sun Bowl playing Arizona State. Tell us how the team's feeling, what you guys want to do, and kind of what the strategy is.
Well, I'll speak to that season real quick. That season was a lot of fun. A lot of people felt like that might have been the season where we fell off because the amount of seniors that we lost. We lost. Who did we lose that season? We lost a lot of guys that season. We lost Snead. We lost Jawan Thompson. We lost Sidney Samariento. Justin Fox, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think Ananiki was gone.
Yep, we lost Kenny Ananiki. We lost Ross Cockrell. So that next season, a lot of people really thought, well, what's next for Duke? You know what I mean? We coming off an ACC run, and everybody's kind of looking like, well, can they do it again? That was the thing. Or will they fall off? Was that just a Cinderella story? You know what I mean? So for us, we kind of looked at it like, no, this is still us. This is still Duke football. Even though we lost a lot of prominent guys, we still had a lot of prominent guys. So going into that season for us, mentality, everybody on the outside is looking like, can they do it again, or was that just a Cinderella story? And that was just the message. This is not a Cinderella story. And also, I think that season, it might have been the season where Blair Holiday may have gotten into his accident that summer, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that was 2012.
It might have been 2012, but Blair had came to see us in 2014. He came and he came to our team meal. Coach Cut he came in and he was like, guys, this Blair Holiday. And Blair walked in and man, it was huge. So when that happened, along with everything else that was going on, we felt good. A lot of the young guys really didn't know who Blair was, didn't know Blair's story, but for the guys who did, include myself included, that kind of put a stamp on this season like anything is possible. just in prayers and everything that went out to Blair, it came round circle. God heard our prayers, and He heard the prayers that we put out with His Every Day's a Holiday Foundation and the things that Kelby Brown and Anthony Boone and those guys were able to do. It was big. It was huge. And Kelby was involved even after he left Duke football. So he was big for us.
And just so the listeners understand, Holiday was a wide receiver, I believe, who had come to play with you all, who was in a terrible boating accident, almost died. Jamison Crowder, I think, was on the boat with him, and a nursing student had to resuscitate him or give him mouth-to-mouth to keep him alive. And he survived all that, which was a miracle, obviously. And then that season, 2014, I think people forget about this, but if you had beaten Virginia Tech, you finish and still lose to Carolina, let's assume that still happens, you finish the season 6-2, and I think have the tiebreaker for the Coastal with Georgia Tech, and you go back to the ACC championship game.
Right. But here's the deal. After, I believe, Pittsburgh, we beat Pittsburgh, and that was we had a 3-game stretch that was tough. We had Pittsburgh Saturday, Virginia Tech Saturday, Carolina Thursday. And that was the 3-game stretch that was going to determine for us. Coach Pitt painted it out for us and let us know, hey, these 3 games are going to determine whether we go back to the ACC championship and become ACC champions or not. Some of you know what that's like, some of you don't. But we're all going to put in the same work, and that's exactly what we did as a team. We put in the same work across the board, freshman to senior. We put in the same amount of work in the off season. We put in the same amount of work during the season. The Pittsburgh game was James Conner, the overtime. I'll tell you, James Conner at the time, and I know he had some personal battles when he got diagnosed with cancer and things like that. And he's an amazing guy. He still made it to the NFL. He still was playing in the NFL. But when he was at Pittsburgh, he was a machine. From the time he was a freshman, from the time he became the James Conner that he was known for being, the back that they were going to feed. James Conner literally ran wild on us. And I'll say that being on the defense as a starter that season. He ran wild on us. We took them in overtime. Their kicker missed the key field goal at the end of the fourth quarter. Ironically, his last name was Blewett, which is hilarious.
Was that the one where I know at some point in that game Cutcliffe called 3 timeouts in a row? Was it at the end of the game as far as the fourth quarter or at the end of overtime?
It was 14. It was either 14 or 11 seconds left. One of the two. Cut called timeout. He let him kick it and called a timeout. And then he called a timeout right before he kicked it. And ironically, Coach Cut kept on saying, his last name's Blewett. His last name's Blewett. So we kept on. We kept at Blewett, Chris Blewett. Don't blow it, Blewett. Like we were out there on the field yelling this to him, just telling him, don't blow it. Your last name is Blewett. Don't blow it. And they snapped the ball and we ran through there with everything we had, and he blew it. It was like a 36-yard field goal, I believe it was, and he hooked it left.
That's like Scottie Pippen telling Karl Malone, the mailman don't deliver on Sunday.
Exactly.
That's brutal, guys, but I love it. I love hearing that. So you finished 5-3 in conference. You got 9 wins. I remember you guys at the end of that Wake game. I was watching it at a bar near my house back then. You guys run to the construction crews and start, jumping on everything to tear up the track, because that's when you guys are going to have the rehabilitation of Wallace Wade start. Walk us through the Sun Bowl. What's the mood going into that game? What's the strategy? What do you guys want to accomplish?
we had never played a Pac-12 team. Well, so a lot of us hadn't. I'll say I did. I got a chance to take the trip to Stanford my freshman year when the ACC versus Pac-12 thing was going on, because they had Andrew Luck one season. The next season was Taylor Nunez, I believe. And that's the season that we ended up traveling to Stanford. And Ty Montgomery pretty much tore us apart. But
that would be an understatement looking at the box score. Yes. Okay. Okay.
But I think that one of the things for us was the setting. Being in El Paso, Texas, in December was an experience in itself. When we got there, there was a sandstorm outside the airport, and then we took on different weather during practice. Let me break this down for you. Our practices at Duke at the time, I can't speak to what they're doing now, but at the time was maybe an hour and 50 minutes, maybe, the most. And this is bowl preparation, so we're taking our time. During a practice, an hour and 50-minute practice, it started raining, and then we saw the sunlight, and then it started snowing. In one practice. This is in El Paso, Texas. This is no joke, no exaggeration, none of that. In one practice, it went from raining to sun to snowing. So that was kind of mind-boggling for us. And then our practice right before the bowl game in the stadium, it was snowing. We had never done that. Been in millions of cold games. Never played in the snow, never practiced in the snow, so that was different for us too. Going into the game against Arizona State, one thing we knew was that they believed in tempo. They believed in continuously moving the ball, and that's what they did. They tried to gas us, and they continuously moved the football. They were good at it. Taylor Kelly was a pretty decent quarterback for what they needed him for in that system. But they came out and they played football. Our mentality in that game was, again, we need a bowl win. Like, that was literally our mentality. We want to win a bowl game. We've been to the ACC championship. We've been in 3 bowl games now. We have to win a bowl game. We felt a little pressure from that.
Okay. That's what I wanted to ask, because from what I could tell from looking at the box score and the little bit of it that I could see, Boone just didn't seem to be playing very well. The offense wasn't clicking early, and it took you guys a while to settle in. Was that because of some pressure that you all felt to win a bowl game?
Yeah, I think for the first time, it wasn't just a celebration about being there. It was the turn of the corner. We turned the corner from celebrate being there and trying to push the win to, yeah, this is nice, but we want to win. If that makes sense. Like, fast forward the celebration, let's get to winning. Like, that was our mentality.
So you've gone from just, I guess, enjoying it to being more like me and expecting something terrible to happen, sort of, and you're not in the moment as much as I guess you need to be going in the game to have a good rhythm to start.
Right. Our mentality is to come out and let's go play football. Like, literally, balls to the wall, if you will. Let's go put the pedal to the metal. And I think instead of doing that, we didn't take time to really take in the atmosphere and really mentally get into what we were there to do, which was win.
It seemed like you guys get down 20-3. I had actually bolted from a family event because it was around Christmas to get back home over to my buddy Tim's house in time to catch the game. So, and my dad actually skipped the family thing entirely because he didn't want to miss any of the game. So, but it seemed like you guys did not settle down until Shaq Powell started to take control. of the offense. He had some good runs, and then he had a touchdown on a screen pass that got it to 20-10. And then Crowder returns a punt. I mean, that was amazing to get it within 3 at 20-17. How big were Powell and Crowder in that game?
Well, one thing we knew was we had to run the ball. We came out and the passing really wasn't there. The defense, when they ran a man, it was just man on man. They were just right there in the hip pocket of our receivers and our running backs and tight ends. But we figured out we had to run the ball. And we knew we had the offensive line to do that. Lucas Patrick, Matt Spear, Lakin Tomlinson. We knew we had that. You know, Casey Blazer at the time's young, but he's literally moving people out of the way. Kobe Cofield, big cat, no worries there. We know he's gonna move you out the way, but at the same time, he's gonna get your end out of the way. He's gonna move up to your linebackers. He might be running with the safeties by the time the back breaks. That's just the type of player he was. But with Shaq was the hot hand. If you go back to the other bowl games that we talked about with Snead, Shaq was our hot hand. When Shaq got going, when Shaquille Powell got going, it was like a train moving. It was a rhythm. Then Jameson implemented his punt return. It's a big player ability. Again, I told you we had closers, and there's a difference between a good player or a great player, and then there's a closer. And Jamison Crowder was definitely a closer.
And Edwards had what I thought was a fumble kind of taken away from him. I wasn't real clear on what the call was because, again, it was a condensed version. But you guys had closers on offense and defense. Mm-hmm. You know, Blakeney had a good game overall. You're moving the ball. He fumbles a first down conversion. And then I think they get a field goal off of that drive. You're down 13, but it didn't seem like you guys were phased much at all.
Nah, we were in the game, and that's what it was for us. Some things started clicking. We started figuring some things out. Halftime went really well for us. I think that fumble was Isaac. He actually was stripped. He caught the ball with the DB in his pocket, and the DB had an arm in and kind of stripped it out from him. So that was a tough play.
It seemed like he was trying to make sure he got the first down because he was real close to it, and I think he just wanted to make sure he converted it, and that's how that ended up happening. It just seemed like one of those flukes.
It's just being competitive. You think about it. The receiver goes out, catches a pass. He can see the first down marker. A lot of guys aren't just going to go down. You know what I mean? A lot of guys are going to fight to get their first down. And I think that's exactly what he was doing. He had that DB in his hip pocket, and guy got the ball out.
Yeah, one guy's trying to pull him back. He's trying to.
And the other guy came up and stripped, held him up and stripped him. So.
Yeah. So, but you guys drive the ball down the field when you get the ball back, and Boone makes one beautiful pass to Barnes. Boone looks around. It seems like everything's broken down. He starts to run forward, and it seemed like a busted coverage situation where the man on Barnes comes in to hit Boone. Boone just sees him, flips the ball to him, and boom, all of a sudden it's a touchdown. It's within 6. One, do you remember that play? And two, how did you guys react to it?
Again, it's just like I told you, we were in the game. Like you said, we were down 13, and it didn't seem to phase us. We were still in the game. And that's exactly the mentality that we had at that time. We weren't phased being down 13. We were more locked in that, okay, things are starting to click. And then you have that play by Boone to Johnny L. Barnes. That's that big playability. That's what comes with being locked in. That's what comes with playing as a team versus the way we came into the game.
Okay, so speaking of big playability, the next drive, or one of the drives after that, Arizona State makes it look like they're gonna close the door shut on you guys. 4th and real short with about 9 minutes, 22 seconds left, and Wolf shows up on 4th down. Walk us through that play when you guys get the stop on 4th down.
So me and AJ, both were young. I had maybe a couple more games on AJ as far as playing experience. I didn't have too many more games on him. AJ had got hurt our freshman year, and he had some off-the-field things that happened that prevented him from playing, but as much as I did. But, again, great player, great teammate. That's my dog. But AJ was a risk taker. The call was for a slant. We were supposed to slant the gap. And AJ shot the gap because he's a risk taker. And he knew, okay, if I make the play, they're going to celebrate me. If I don't make the play, they're just going to take me out. he kind of lived on that at the time before he became a starter. He kind of lived on that. And I think that it worked out for him, as it did a lot of times. So, I mean, you're talking about a gutsy guy from New York. I mean, he played every position in high school. You bring him to Duke, he's a defensive tackle. He's just used to banging heads and making plays, and that's exactly what he did. He made plays.
So you guys get the ball back, and the offense kind of sputters. It's, I think, 4th and 11, and Will Monday throws a beautiful pass to Barnes for 30 yards. It looks like Monday's going to roll out to do a kind of a rugby kick, but then he just throws it back across his body. And Barnes, takes it and runs with it. You get the ball downfield, and you got to get a touchdown to win because you're down 6. Boone almost throws an interception, but it's trapped on the ground and overturned. And then Crowder, you want to talk about big playability. You know what play I'm going to ask you about. Tell us what happens on that 4th and 2.
So Jameson rolls out and throws a left-handed pass to Isaac Blakely for a touchdown. Or it was a touchdown or a first down?
It was a touchdown. He starts up on the right side, comes in motion like maybe you're going to do a direct snap and he's going to run it or do kind of an RPO. And, I mean,
Let me tell you, because again, when the offense is on the field, obviously I'm on the sideline, but I'm on the edge closest to where you can see the offense, if that makes sense.
Right.
We're all standing right behind Coach Cut, yelling, go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it, go for it. And he just turns around and everybody shuts up. He called the timeout. He's talking with Coach Mo back and forth on the headset, and he does his patented, puts his hands behind his back, walks down the sideline with his head down, and that pretty much let us know he was going to go for it. Now, what play did we think was coming? When Jameson came in motion, we thought it was jet sweep, just like everybody else. We were like, oh, okay, jet sweep, it's going to be a first down. When Jameson threw the ball, it was kind of like... And it was like a pause. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then touchdown, we're going crazy. Because, again, we're already locked in, down 13-0. Or 13, excuse me. We're already locked in, down 13. So, down 6, we're driving back and forth. As long as we can keep them in our aims, we'll hit the target. And we did. That was a big play for us.
And so Blakeney scores. You guys are up, I think at that point, 31-30. And what happened on the kickoff return where that guy almost scores for Arizona State?
We had a freshman on kickoff who he earned it. Chris Holmes. He earned it. He earned his spot on kickoff. And just like any other play, he runs down the field, and I just don't think he expected to be at the guy as fast as he was, and he kind of missed the guy, and that left a hole open to really seal the deal as far as them returning the kick.
And so they score quickly, which actually isn't bad, and then there's a 2-point conversion attempt, which you actually knocked the quarterback out of bounds on, right?
Mm-hmm. I chased him all the way. So we had a play where I was in contain, and contain could have been from the opposite hash to their sideline, or vice versa. And yes, a defensive tackle, I know, right? It's crazy. But I had contained, and I just see him rolling out, and I'm just like, okay. And I'm not going to go towards him because I know if I roll towards him, I lose the angle. If I keep the angle, he's not going to outrun me, right? Okay, so he's just rolling, he's rolling, he's rolling. And I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, he's running out of time. And by the time I realized we were about to sideline, I'm laying a hit on him. So, I mean, as he's rolling out, I'm literally following him as kind of like a spy. But as he kept rolling, my internal clock just told me, okay, he's done. Like, he's ran out of time. And next thing I know, I get up and I look up. We're on the sideline. That's just how fast it happens.
And so they were going for 2 because then that makes it 38-31. You've got to score 7 to tie it.
Mm-hmm.
And that play, that 2-point conversion play that they ran, it looks like something busted or someone on the offense didn't understand what was going on. It looked really odd. What was your thought on it about what they were trying to do and then what they ended up doing?
Well, in my head, I just felt like our coverage was damn good for him to hold the ball that long. Because essentially, for him to keep rolling, most quarterbacks roll, stop, look, or maybe, try to pump fake something. He didn't try anything. He just kept rolling, kept rolling, kept rolling. So I just rolled with him.
So you guys get the ball back. You're driving it downfield. And it looked like on one play, Boone had just slightly underthrew Crowder on what could have been a touchdown. But I think he ends up at the 25 of Arizona State. He had to come back for the ball just a little bit. I think it was on 3rd and 6.
Yeah, but Jameson got his hands in his arms under the ball. He trapped the ball. The ball didn't touch the ground, and they spent a long time reviewing that. And Coach Cut had a thing about that because he kind of felt like they were giving Arizona a break almost. They reviewed that play about 7 or 8 times. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you miss on the condensed version. But tell us, you guys are close to getting a touchdown. You're close to the end zone. Tell us how the game ends.
We're rolling down the field. Finally get past the review. We're rolling down the field, and from what I saw, I'll tell you what I saw. I see Isaac with a man trailing back at the end zone, and I see Max McCaffrey underneath. Now, that's from the sideline. What happened was Boone threw a fade to Jameson, which was picked up by Arizona State back in the end zone. And that was the end all be all for that game.
That had to hurt for Boone, he was such an important quarterback to get Duke to certainly where it was then and where it's gone to since. He was a critical quarterback. For him to lose 2 bowl games in that fashion, that seemed just really harsh, and especially for those seniors. How did he handle that after the game?
He handled it as well as I feel like he could. I think it spoke to the type of guy he is. But he, Boone was never the type of guy to lash out or have ill will or anything like that, or play the blame game, blaming everybody else or anything like that. He took it on the shoulder and took his punch and he rolled with it. And he handled it well. He did.
All right. So you guys go into 2015, and the last time we talked, we discussed a little bit about what happened that season. I don't want to relive that moment again. But there were a couple of things that I noticed towards the end of the year as you guys were going through what you were going through with Miami. You start off 6-2, you finish 7-5. I don't want to say that you backed into a bowl, but where the season started and where it ended up seemed like 2 different things. You were short-handed going into that bowl game. Jeremy Cash wasn't playing. I think you'd lost one of the Brown brothers that year, and Humphreys was wearing his jersey to honor him. And you'd also lost 3 players who had been kicked off the team that year, Barnes, Alls, and Chris Holmes. to the extent you can talk about it, because Barnes was a big part of the offense, what happened?
A lot went on that season behind closed doors going into 2015. We lost a lot of leadership going into that season, which also forced a lot of leaders to step up. And it kind of speaks to what I was saying about the current Duke football situation, where I feel like leaders need to step up and take hold of the locker room. But it don't need to be guys that are. It doesn't need to be guys who've been picture perfect. It needs to be guys who had a couple of trials and tribulations and who knows, what it takes to lead a group into a battle and come out victorious. And I myself had a couple of trials and tribulations while I was at Duke and part of Duke football, along with John L. Barnes, Terrence Off. It was Chris Holmes and T.J. Douglas as well. Those guys were dismissed from the team for multiple violations when it came to off-the-field offenses, such as failed drug tests. There was a DUI involved. But those were things that we handled as a program and we handled as a team and as a family. And some decisions were made for multiple offenders. I myself was a one-time offender as far as a drug test I failed. But that opened my eyes and showed me that I needed to step up and be a leader because of how many players we lost to things that were going on off the field.
So you took that, you learned from that, made some changes, and that helped you. So I guess the other folks, with whatever they were going through, didn't learn as much. Sometimes you got to keep learning the hard way before you finally learn the lesson. I think some of those guys ended up transferring to other places. You come into the Pinstripe Bowl at 7-5, and the one takeaway I had that I didn't know, the one takeaway I had from that, watching that game again, not knowing that much about Indiana coming to that game, was Redding, their running back. He was pretty good.
He was. The big name back that didn't end up playing, though, was Jordan Howard.
What was your defensive strategy coming into that game?
We would play fast. The Big Ten, it speaks for itself when it comes to the way they run the football, the way a lot of the teams operate. A lot of the offensive linemen that come out of the Big Ten and end up going to the NFL, two of which came from Indiana, ended up with the Chargers, my former team in the NFL. So definitely, we definitely knew that we had our hands full as far as going to that game, as far as their offense versus our defense. We knew, with Ben Humphries being a freshman, Dwayne Norman being transformed from a safety to a linebacker, and him taking over the leadership with the linebackers, we had a lot of new faces in new places. So we knew we had our hands full, but we also knew that we were going into that game to win. And I'll speak to this. Shortly after the Sun Bowl, I talked with Kevin White, and I told him that he wouldn't know what this feels like next year. Pretty much letting him know the next bowl game we go to, we're going to win. And he can speak to that. Because after the Pinstripe Bowl, me and him celebrated that. We had that moment there. But going into that game, we pretty much knew that we were going to win that game.
So you guys come out and you were putting up points. You're up 10-0, and then there were some great plays, because you mentioned Dwayne Norman. He had an insane interception when Indiana was looking to score. It just kind of bounced into his hands. Then Wilson gets the ball, just coasts 85 yards to the house. He was running faster than coasting, but he was such a natural. He made it look like coasting. Cirque is scrambling. I don't know if anybody ever taught him how to slide, which we'll talk about that later because he was taking some hits too. The only thing about the offense that I could tell, this was sort of a condensed version of the game. It looked like there were a lot of calls for him to throw the ball deep, which was not necessarily his best pass. But regardless, you guys are really coming out strong. You're up 10-0, and then there was an onside kick attempt that you guys didn't recover, and it sure seemed like that woke Indiana up. What happened at that time?
I think we just kind of threw the corn in the bucket, if that makes sense. Just trying to flex our muscles a little bit, trying to get an extra possession. Going into that game, going up 10-0. Well, I do remember the defense was up first, so we were excited about that. So we got to get our feet wet first in the game. And if I'm not mistaken, I made the second or the third tackle of the game, if I'm not mistaken. So we all got our feet wet early. Dwayne was in there, Ben was in there hitting. So we kind of got our feel for it, if that makes sense. And then fast forward being up 10-0 with the onside kick. Like I said, just trying to steal a possession. Just letting them know, like, hey, you better stay on your toes. And of course, they came out and did their thing and punched us in the mouth a couple times. But Indiana was a tough team. They were.
And they had a really good stretch there after that attempt to get the extra possession on that onside kick. I think they scored 17 straight points and were really lighting it up. But Cirque does what Cirque would do, and he broke a 73-yard touchdown run on a design draw. I don't think it was meant for him to go 73 yards, but it sure did.
Well, if you go back and look at Virginia Tech of that season, we ran that play like 7 or 8 times on third down. And it wasn't about Cirque, it was about our backs. It was about Jalay Duncan. It was about Shaquille Powell and Deshaun Wilson. We had great running backs that were willing to sacrifice themselves for somebody else to make a play, if that makes sense.
It does. It absolutely does. And I misspoke. They scored 14 straight. You guys got it to 17-14. Then they got a field goal right towards, I believe, the end of the half, and it's 17 all going into halftime. So Indiana's still scoring points. You guys are having a hard time containing Redding because, I mean, he played really well, and I think he was a lot to try to keep contained. At one point in the second half, there is a punt all the way down to Indiana. Indiana starts trying to come forward with the ball, and what happens at that point and who's involved to get you guys the ball in the red zone?
So Indiana got the punt, and I remember seeing Shaq Powell run like he's never ran before. and he had a couple of knick-knack injuries, throughout the season, but he was finally like 100% healthy by the time the bowl came around. And Shaq was rolling down the field, and I just remember him getting the ball out, and I just remember seeing David Reed, as of all people, the closer, diving on the football and making the recovery. So it was a wild play.
Now, how are you guys feeling at that point in time? And speaking of closers, who actually gets the touchdown off of that to get you guys up by 3 on what looked like a run from Cirque and turned into a jump pass, but Braxton Deaver?
Exactly. And the reason I'll tell you this, because David Reed says if you bring this up, if you're ever able to talk to David Reed, he brings this up, he's going to say this. He was supposed to be in on that play, but on that fumble recovery, his shoe came off. He says that every time. So he says that Deaver stole his touchdown, but it's a joke. It's a running joke. It's not even a serious thing. He doesn't take it that serious, but it's definitely a running joke for him. But again, another closer, Braxton Deep.
That was his 6th year, right?
Yep.
Well, that was big for him to get that, and he'd almost had on a fake punt, almost a conversion, but it was the same thing you guys had run the year before. It did not work out, and it seemed like a questionable decision to run the exact same play that you'd run the year before, but regardless, it was run, and Deaver almost had it, but the Indiana defender was just able to get over there and strip the ball from him before he could bring it in and really lock down the catch. So you guys go back to trading punches for a while, the lead's going back and forth, and then you want to talk about playmakers and closers. Sean Wilson breaks off a kick return for a touchdown.
And I mean, he's like you said, to everybody else, it looks like he's moving, like he's running as fast as he can. I'll tell you, Sean Wilson is taking his time. He's relaxed. When he's running that fast, Sean Wilson's at his best, but in his mind, he's his most relaxed. He's a track star.
And he had a couple of good returns prior to that he almost broke off. And I remember when I watched it, when it was, live, when I watched it live, I felt like he was just about to do something special if he got another kick return. And it was just a question of when, not if, he was going to break one of those off. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Exactly. And when he hit that hole, we pretty much knew all he had to kick it was the beat. We knew that was it.
So they score a touchdown and are up 7 with, I think, about a little over 4 minutes left to go. All right, it's 41-34. You guys get the ball, start moving it down the field, and some playmakers really, really step up. There's a 4th and 2 that Max McCaffrey catches to convert. I think TJ has some big plays as well. You guys are on the sideline as the defense, but what is the offense's approach, and how do you guys as the defense and a team feel with the ball in Cirque's hands with a chance to go down and tie it, if not win the game?
Well, the thing with us is we knew the offense was going to do their job. So we, as a defense, were waiting for an opportunity. We're like chomping at the bit to get out there in this thing. That makes sense. But, we're relaxed as a defense cheering the offense on. But, again, we're chomping at the bit. We're not sitting down and talking about strategy. We're standing up on the sideline, helmets on, watching the offense, but also ready.
So you guys don't feel really any pressure at that point in time. You're expecting the offense to give you a chance to win this game.
Just like they did in the 4 overtimes at Virginia Tech, the offense stepped in and did their job. We finally came in as a defense. We made one stop. The offense went out there, scored, ball game. That's exactly what we've been there, done that before. So we weren't able to act like we hadn't been there before, because we had. You know what I mean?
Right, and Indiana's kicker at the end of regulation misses a 56-yarder.
Well, we have a thing about kickers and special teams that do. And again, I spoke to the kicker at Pittsburgh, so you can only imagine what the kicker at Indiana went through.
Oh, okay. What were you guys doing?
Oh, we were antagonizing, just yelling crazy stuff, yelling different names at him, telling him, hey, you don't got a chance, you're too short, your legs ain't long enough. Crazy stuff. Your feet are too small, you got Whopper hands. It was ridiculous. We were saying all kind of stuff. Okay,
so you're going into overtime. It's tied up at 41. You guys get the ball first. How do you all feel?
In our minds, we're going to score. Like this, again, 4 overtimes at Virginia Tech. We've done this. We've been here before. We're going to do it again. That's literally our mentality. We're on the brink of winning our first bowl game, but our mentality is so locked into the game that we aren't going to celebrate this thing before it happens this time.
Do you feel
we've done that before?
Are you feeling any pressure, any nerves? Again, 1961, 3 straight bowl losses. You're a senior.
That's the thing is that's the type of team we had in 2015 would allow us to venture off and think about things like that. When we were in the game, we were fully locked into the game, and then whatever like if I'll give you an example. When Sean Wilson broke the record for rushing in the ACC against Kansas his freshman year, we as a team celebrated that record, celebrated him. By Sunday, celebration over. Next game. You get what I'm saying? So for us, we weren't trained to celebrate before we were trained or during. We weren't trained to celebrate during the game. We were trained to celebrate after the game. And that's why, like, during the game, there wasn't pressure, but there wasn't people walking around the sideline. Oh, we got this. Everybody's standing up, locked into what the offense is doing. The mentality is, we've been here before.
So did the aftermath of the Miami game motivate you all to bring this home with a win?
Well, the Miami game for us kind of killed our season, if you will. As far as the mentality that we had. So it forced us to create a new mentality, which was good for us. Now, again, the loss to Carolina after the Miami game, again, it forced us to create a new mentality. It forced us all to look in the mirror, and that's what we did. We went to Wake Forest, took John Wofford down, 27-20. We were starting to slowly gain that back. We had 2 weeks off before we left and went up to New York. We got time to bond as a team. We got time to create this new culture, to work on this new mentality. That's exactly what we did. Fast forward to the bowl game, new mentality, new face. We're ready. So, yeah, you could say Miami did a lot for us. It didn't just do one thing. It did a lot for us.
All right, so you guys end up with a field goal in overtime to go up 44-41. Cirque got hurt on second down. Parker Boehm comes in. He looked confident, but he didn't seem in a rhythm, which I would expect given that situation that he comes into, right? How bad was Cirque's injury, if you can talk about it?
I'll say it like this, it was bad enough to take him off the field for a couple plays, but not bad enough to end the game. Cirque is a tough guy. Like you said, you don't know if anybody's ever told him how to slide, but he usually is used to running people over. He's not used to taking the hit. He's used to laying it. So it was substantial enough to take him off the field, but not substantial enough to keep him off the field.
So if you guys had gone into a second overtime, would he have come back to play?
Yeah, absolutely. There was no doubt about it.
Okay, so on the last drive, I couldn't get a good look at it for Indiana, where they get the ball on their overtime possession. Were you on the field? Was Ramsey on the field? Were you both on the field? I couldn't quite make it out.
I believe that I was on the field with AJ, if I'm not mistaken, because I know I was on the field when the field goal came up. So I was on the field during the drive, but I don't know who was on the field with me. Okay,
so they looked a little clunky on offense, and they kind of got away a little bit from what had been working for them.
They seemed rushed. It seemed like there was a lot of moving around, and no, you're here, not here. Just come to this side. Like, there was a lot of confusion going on. Sudfield, the whole game was cool as a breeze up until that point.
Okay, and it looked like Humphreys had a big play towards the end of the game where he gets a tackle. You guys hold him to a field goal, a 38-yard field goal attempt. Okay, yeah. And so they've got to hit that to tie it and go into second overtime. Are you doing the same thing you did to the guy at the end of regulation?
Every time.
Okay.
No matter the kicker, every time.
Did he hit that field goal?
No.
Okay. Tell us what about the field goal that he missed. It looked like maybe it had gone too high or maybe a little bit to the left. What was it?
Well, here's the thing: you can never go too high for a field goal, right? Because if it goes through the upright, it goes through the upright. But anytime the ball travels outside of the upright, literally over this, if a ball goes over the top of the upright, but it's outside of the upright, outside of the flag that's flapping, that's a miss. It doesn't matter how you look at it. If it's outside of the upright, it's a miss.
Okay.
And everybody kind of was looking crazy when we were celebrating, and the referees came out and said the game's over because it was a miss. You could see it on the replay. You could see it on the field. It was a miss. He hooked it.
The Indiana kicker was adamant that he made it, but what you're saying is if any part of the ball is outside the upright, it's no good.
It's a miss.
And they couldn't review it. It was a non-reviewable play. What the announcers said is because it was so high up was their explanation for it. I don't know what the rule is on it, but...
Hey, I'll say it like this. If you go back to the Belt Bowl, that play was not reviewable. If you go back to the Belt Bowl, we had to re-kick for a defensive penalty. If you go back to the Peach Bowl, as you call it, nobody saw anybody calling a timeout. Nobody saw anybody calling a timeout.
Right.
Fast forward to this game, the ball was kicked too high. Hey, who knows?
Justice came around. It took a while, but it came around.
Hey, who knows?
Okay.
But we weren't upset, I'll tell you that.
Okay. So tell us what the win meant to you guys, particularly as seniors.
Well, we worked so hard. We've been in 3 straight bowl games where we lost. And we were in our 4th bowl game as a class, tied for most wins in school history. As a class, we just wanted to close it out right. And to be able to do that, I think that pretty much sealed the deal. As a class, me and guys like Corbin McCarthy, Shaq Powell, Jalay Duncan, we all, at the beginning of this thing, said we could come here and change this thing. And I felt like with that bowl win, that's what we did.
Well, I appreciate everything you did at Duke. I appreciate 4 bowl games. I appreciate the Coastal title. I appreciate all the wins. I appreciate the Pinstripe Bowl win. Everything that you did, thank you. I appreciate you coming on not once but twice. Is there anything else you want to say about any of these 4 games?
It was a hell of a ride, man. It was a hell of a ride.
And I want to say this. You mentioned me talking to Reeves. He and I have been exchanging messages. So tell him to call me, and I'll be happy to talk to him. I'd love to talk to him, just like I've had the chance to talk to you. And I look forward to anybody else who wants to come on to talk about anything Duke football related. Send me an email, bullcitycoordinators@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter @DukeFBCoverage. Listen to our podcast on Anchor, on Spotify, on Google Podcasts. You can find us. We are around. Mr. Wray, thank you, sir, for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, have a good one.
All right. You as well. And again, ladies and gentlemen, keep following us. We've got some more interviews lined up, and we look forward to many more in the future.